Good morning. Thanks for being here. This is our second EDA-sponsored Irish Heritage Celebration. This year, we are fortunate to be in the home district of Deputy Speaker Carol Murphy, so thank you for having us. Thank you to Dooney's for hosting us. We have a really good panel that we're going to hear from, so let me just quickly introduce. To my left, we have Evan Weiss, who is the CEO of the EDA. Speaker Coughlin, unfortunately, could not join us this morning. He called and said he was not feeling well, so we missed the speaker, but appreciate him supporting this event. Deputy Speaker Carol Murphy, who just introduced, is hosting this in her home district. We have to my right Kevin Quinn, who's the owner of About the Hops Brewing, another LD7 constituent. And then we also very honored today to have the Consul General of Ireland, Mr. Gerald Angley, and also the Deputy Consul General, Katie Dawn. So thank you very much for being here and supporting this event. We really appreciate it. And now the mic is on. Great, thank you. Okay, so real quick, we're going to go through this. We are going to hear from the panelists, and then we'll open it up at the end and have more of a free-flowing conversation. So to start, Kevin, if you don't mind, local business owner, can you just kind of talk about BTH Brewing, what inspired you to start it, what inspired you to create a business in New Jersey, and anything about the experience and anything that the panel should know.
Yeah, I've lived in New Jersey my whole life. Grew up here, went to college here at JIT, and I got out of school. I spent about 8 years in college, so I was a little bit behind the gun, and got into the IT field. And really just saw things that I didn't like there, even though I'm still in it, which is, the layoff culture, and never really took for granted my job, and always needed to do something in the background in order to make sure that I was good. I've written and started a number of different businesses, and there's a lot of overhead with starting an IT company. So I was looking for something that was a little bit more hands-on, away from the desk, and craft beer kind of popped up in the scene in 2016 through 2018, and I thought that I could make a run at that and be pretty good at it. So I partnered up with some other people, and we looked to open a brewery. At the time, I lived in Mount Laurel and also worked in Mount Laurel, and with the amount of people in the area, I figured it was a good place to try to open it.
What kind of challenges did you have when you started, and how have you found the process overall in New Jersey? And is there anything that folks on this panel could be helpful with?
When it comes to opening, the challenges were really around the regulations, and making sure that, we did the application process in its full. There's a lot of checks and balances in place in the alcohol industry. As you know, it's one of the most highly regulated industries out there. So the process was long. And of course, when you're trying to open a physical location such as this, the rent doesn't stop ticking. So you have to shell out of pocket in order to get anything moving. So that was definitely a big challenge. And once we were opened, we opened about 3 months before the pandemic hit. So we've been backpedaling ever since with one thing after another. As you know, craft beer laws have changed over time, and it seems like every year and a half or so, or 2 years, they want to come out with a new revision that then makes us backpedal and have to try to adapt to those new laws. That increasing wages, and now taxes coming around in the hemp bill that was just recently passed. So yeah, just trying to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and hoping that it works out.
What do you think that the state? What do you think the state or local officials could do to help, not only since you've started the process, but in terms of getting started with the process?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how anybody can really help with it. You're kind of on your own journey. There's some transparency issues that would, it'd be great to be able to know what's actually involved before you start the process. And I haven't done the process since we opened, obviously, and maybe that's changed, but you kind of have to have this leap of faith to go into it, not knowing what you're really up against on the application side of things. in our particular example, I wasn't aware that we were going to have to prove where every single dollar came from. So instead of taking out a loan, not being able to go through that process, get an SBA loan, which is long and arduous, and you don't have anything to show for in order to be able to obtain that loan, we leveraged our credit cards, which is fair game. But what we didn't know is we had it spread across 8 or 9 different credit cards over the course of a year, and we had to print that out. It came out to about 500 pages. We mailed that to the ABC, and then they said that wasn't good enough because they didn't have time to go through it, so they sent the whole thing back to us, and then they made us go through the 500 pages and highlight every single penny that we ever spent that applied to the business before we could get our application approved. So these are the types of things you don't necessarily see coming when you're trying to do that, because you fill out the application and it looks like you're good, and then you go to the next round of requirements that's not on the surface.
Do you have any suggestions for what the state could do? I mean, the CEO will obviously speak to this, but the Governor Sherrill has made it clear that she wants New Jersey to be more helpful to small business owners. What ideas do you have that could be helpful?
Well, we started out running a tap room, and, in the brewing industry, economy of scale is the key. You have to be able to produce a lot in order to, lower your costs and be competitive. The single biggest factor and detriment at this moment in time in the brewing industry is that only 3% of all beer drank in New Jersey is actually manufactured in New Jersey. So you have out-of-state companies that come in with a whole lot of money with their brands and box you out. They've consumed all of the distributorships and methods by which you can actually go from a small brewery to one that manufactures, which complies with the 3-tier system. So, I think paving the way for more demand is a big step in being able to allow small craft breweries grow into an actual business that will allow them to make money. Right now, today, what you have is a bunch of people starting up a bar or a tap room, fighting those rules and regulations, trying to make a dollar to grow their business, but what they've really done is spent $250,000 or $400,000 to buy themselves a job when they could have easily kept that money in the bank and made more money watching television.
Okay, good segue. We'll turn to Evan. Having listened to Kevin, thoughts on programs, resources that the state, that the EDA could possibly be helpful with small business owners?
I mean, yes and no. I think, I'm nervous. Like you said, like SBA is the national program for a lot of businesses like you, but a lot of businesses like yours don't use it because it's too hard. And every time EDA sets up a program, it can also be hard and hard to use. And I think it speaks to some of the stuff we've tried to do is still sitting on the table. Like we have grant program for liquor license applicants that hasn't really been spent down. So not to be negative at all, but just to try to learn. Like it's, I'm 2 months into this at this point. I worked with a lot of businesses like yours in my last job, and I used to try to get EDA money in my last job, or some of the businesses that were part of our group. It's hard. So it's the sort of thing where it's like, it needs to feel worth it for you. Like the credit card, or if you're using fintech companies that offer you loans and that kind of stuff, it can get difficult quickly. So, but if that's the alternative, then we're not doing our job. So I think the governor is really obsessed, and I think the legislature as well, of just like, if we're going to try to do programs like this, how do we actually make them usable based on real life? Because your point as well of just like, you have to get open. And until you get open and start making revenue, you just have costs. And so floating businesses, I mean, that's something as well I'm really interested in, leveraging banking relationships, again, to try to make it easier. Because I think money matters, obviously, but I just, you have to run your business. And to then have to do all this other stuff to regulate it, you'll become an accountant instead of a brewer, and it's just like, we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And I just think I've been impressed, with Ireland and the UK, very different places, obviously, but just in Europe in general, like some of the more cooperative things they've done with your local pub and things like that. I'd love to kind of explore, some of the more community-oriented ways, again, that as businesses, especially community ones like this, like what a pub is or a restaurant like this have. I've just been very pleased, in terms of what we did at EDA and the state, our predecessors in terms of relationship building with Ireland, billions of dollars worth of investment, that have come into the state because of the relationship. I can't think of a more New Jersey experience than going on the turnpike and going to a rest stop, and the fact that that's an Irish company with Applegreen. And I also have to say, the rest stops before Applegreen came in could use a little love, and they've gotten that. And so I feel like it's a great, very visible example of what Ireland has done in New Jersey very visibly for us, and really want to explore the best ways to try to enhance these partnerships. We walked in here, or when I look on the window, I see an Irish brand right there with Guinness. Pretty important, though, to try to balance the best of these big brands with brands like yours that you're building. And I think it's something that EDA I take very seriously, of just, we have our big, wonderful businesses in New Jersey, the ones we're trying to recruit from around the world, but making sure, again, that we leave room for the entrepreneurs here, to grow and become the next Guinness or the almost Guinness, I think is a big deal for us. So it's just always trying to balance these two things in our head. It's like government wants to be helpful. We have a great team working on that. We have a great legislature working on that. But then how does it work in the real world? And learning about that, to me, is so important. And I think, again, learning from our friends across the ocean is a great way to do that, too.
Thanks, Evan. Deputy Speaker Murphy, obviously, I know you have some thoughts on this. Your district, you're a leader in the legislature. What can we do?
First of all, thank you for this. And I do want to recognize we do have Mike Eaton here from our BCA, it's a State Business Association, a Chamber of Business.
And a great pen and a great tie.
See?
Yeah, there's all the time.
This is not just St. Patrick's Day, it's Irish heritage.
That's right, absolutely. So, one of the things that I've been working on, and for those who don't know, I'm also the co-chair of the National Irish American Caucus, as well as I'm a co-chair here in New Jersey. Wayne D'Angelo and I formed the Irish Caucus a couple years ago, and had a great pleasure of meeting with folks. But one of the things with my friends, and I just got to know the Consul General and the Deputy Consul just recently, we've had the great opportunity to work together on many things. And one of the things, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about the delegation trip that I put together for April. One of the things that we did, and when I formed the bill that actually has gone to 24 states now, and 17 have passed it, and the other ones are pending, that would develop a trade commission. The reason being this is because what has been said before me is the fact that we have so many businesses that do business, whether it is in Ireland. Ireland is the gateway to Europe for many businesses. And their businesses and their development has increased tremendously. We've seen in Dublin, I will be taking folks to Dublin, and we will be visiting some of the Amazons, and we'll be visiting Bristol Myers Squibbs, and we will be visiting J&J, and we will be going to Amazon, hopefully Amazon with them as well, the Carey Group, and we're getting a list of the other businesses. We anticipate having a full day, and a day and a half actually, along with meeting the legislature in Leinster House and the ambassador. And having a reception at Guinness, right? Because this is what it's about. Our Trade Commission is what it's about, is making sure our businesses who do business across the pond have the ability to continue doing businesses, and offering those small entrepreneurs a chance to even explore once they get their business up, maybe in a different country. That would allow them to grow. But more importantly, it's also about bringing those Irish businesses to here, to New Jersey, to the tri-state area, because we want to celebrate not only Irish Heritage Month, but what New Jersey has to offer. And going back to what, has always been an age-long question and problem, I think, is how to simplify the ability for businesses to start their business. And that is something, even when I worked in schools construction and meeting with a lot of my contractors, that has always been one of the biggest challenges, was all the paperwork and what needs to be done and what you need to know. Because business is hard enough, especially in today's world, to get it going, and with the environment. We have to figure out as a state, and these are things I think we need to work on. And we've done a lot of good bills and passed legislation that would help businesses, but I think when we talk about small businesses and those businesses who are getting off the ground who want to grow or maybe even stay small and have a few places around, I think we owe it to ourselves to be able to explore that. And the last thing I would say also is that the Trade Commission, one of the things I set up and I will be doing, working with Lieutenant Governor on, we're going to start working on education exchanges about making sure that people who do business here and they want to learn, especially our college kids who maybe want to go to Ireland and start a business in Ireland, they learn what the business is like in Ireland before they even open. And the same here. If you have people in school or want that education over here as to how to do business over here, we should be offering that. It's a great way of exchanging, it's a great way of building, and Ireland, and I'll end it with this, is that Ireland has, and especially New Jersey, but U.S. has always had strong relationships, a steadfast relationship with each other, and we are committed to make sure that we continue having a good relationship with each other. And I will tell you this, my seniors who know I go to Ireland a lot, always like, oh, we never go back to the homeland, and now they're going back because they feel more comfortable knowing what they're going back to is actually more enterprising for them, and a lot of that oldness is gone. So I am very happy to continue working on this along with Sean and Evan and Consul General and Deputy Consul General as well as the Speaker, making sure that we can, and the Lieutenant Governor, make sure that we can continue inspiring people to go to Ireland and then come back here, even to New York. We'll go with the New York trip.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Consul General, again, I know we spoke briefly on the way-in, but honored to have you here. Thank you again for supporting this. Can you give some perspective, the current economic relationship between Ireland and New Jersey, what is it, and where do you see the most potential for growth?
Am I on already? Look, thank you so much. Now we're joined here by my colleague Katie Dawn, who's Deputy Consul General and leads on New Jersey, and may come in during these few words we have. But no, it's great to be here. And I suppose the first thing I'd say is that what's coming together really strong is the kind of the political and official will to work on this relationship with New Jersey. Right to the top of the legislature here, across the legislature. The Lieutenant Governor and Governor wish to be personally involved in this, and the same is the case on our side. So it's a great opportunity, building on all the work done in recent years. But the relationship is already pretty strong. I mean, there's a whole range of statistics one can get into, but the most important thing to anyone really is jobs. And measurements we've done, which drawing to some extent on US statistics, is 26 Irish companies have operations in New Jersey employing 7,000 people, and 38 New Jersey companies employ about 12,000 people in Ireland. That's a really strong start, but we can probably do even better than that. And I mean, there's all sorts of there's some really long established businesses here. We were at the Morristown St. Patrick's Day Parade a couple of weeks ago, and CIE Tours, which is actually still owned by the Irish government, is a really successful 90-year-old tourism company bringing US tourists to Ireland, but all of its operations for the US are based out of Morristown. That's a great story. There's more recent examples. Applegreen, they transformed the quality of coffee in rest stops all across Ireland. I hope they're doing the same here. But they're a really ambitious company, and obviously they've won business. They won the right to operate those stops. But there's more behind. There's people in sort of working, linking AI and financial services operating here. So the relationship has potential to grow, and there's so many reasons for this. I mean, the geographic, the sort of historic people-to-people links. If there's one in every 9 people in New Jersey have Irish heritage, that's a great start. Just being geographically located in the tri-state area, having an airport in Newark that has direct flights all year round. That's kind of transformational in its own right. I know it's well established, but nonetheless, it's the key to people coming back and forth. So the potential is there, and what I'd say is that we've a few next steps to do. I think we need to know a bit more about the incentives that New Jersey offered that may be, kind of better and unique compared with any other location. We have also in our office, the Consulate General of Ireland in New York is part of what's called Ireland House. And so we sit on the same floor in the MetLife building, bang in the centre of Midtown Manhattan. But we sit sharing our office floor with a series of Irish government agencies. The one most relevant to this discussion is called Enterprise Ireland. It helps Irish companies expand abroad and scale up abroad and begin to sort of plant roots abroad. So they're a key partner here, which we should link you up with better. But there's others. IDA Ireland seeks sort of larger foreign direct investment into Ireland, but then out of that, a whole ecosystem of businesses is built. And then we have one agency devoted specifically to food and drink, which is relevant to the business we're discussing here today. And then one promoting tourism for the whole island of Ireland. And again, that links into the whole CIE tour story. So all that is joined up, and we're a one-stop shop. We're a single entity. So there's definitely room for expansion there. But Katie, you're working the overall relationship here, including the political relationship. There's plenty going on.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, thank you. Lovely to be here. No, I think we're starting from a strong foundation, which is always the best place to be in. And I think in terms of the establishment of the Trade Commission, the delegation visits to Ireland, I think that's all great in terms of building relationships, because relationships is often what helps drive kind of economic activity. And I'm actually, I suppose, coming into this conversation from a slightly different perspective, because in a previous role, I used to work in a Chamber of Commerce for Britain and Ireland, and I worked there during the time of Brexit. And so a lot of that work was about navigating change for business, building those relationships and ensuring that the will to do business and trade was supported at government and official level. So I'm kind of looking at it slightly differently to where my current role is. And I think from that experience, one of the great things about the Irish market is that there's a lot of knowledge and expertise. It's quite agile because there was probably one of the most disruptive economic shocks that happened, and a lot of businesses had to, I suppose, adjust and change. But it means that they're very forward and outward looking and are willing to kind of take chances with new markets once they know that the conditions are right. And if those relationships are built, I think, in that old adage, if you build it, they will come. I think there is an interest in that. I mean, Ireland is a very open economy. And I think, there's also the scope for knowledge sharing. And I was struck in terms of Kevin's comments around, the regulatory environment and, small breweries. And one of the things that struck me is that actually Ireland has a very strong ecosystem of small breweries, and so finding where there are those commonalities and trying to build those links and share that knowledge. And although the regulatory environment in its specifics will be different, the food and drink industry is one that's also highly regulated in Ireland, so I'm sure there is common understanding, experience that can be benefited from that. And also, I suppose, as well, in terms of the education exchanges, which I was struck when Assemblywoman Murphy was speaking there. Actually, last week I was at an event for DCU, so Dublin City University, and Rutgers University alumni that was hosted in New York. I'm a DCU alum myself, so that's how I get invited into these rooms. But there's an awful lot of work happening there, so I think they signed a memorandum of understanding last year, but you can see that there's real focus and impetus on growing that partnership and finding new opportunities. So speak to kind of what the Assemblywoman was saying is how we can leverage those partnerships that are already happening for broader benefit across different sectors as well. But I think, I suppose back to the original point, we are in a good starting place. I'm not going to reiterate the statistics that Gerald very eloquently gave, but having that foundation and also having people on both sides willing to grow and develop what we already have, I think is kind of the best thing that we can ask for at this point.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I'm just going to say one more in response to that. We're starting to see, and my husband's a perfect example, starting to get his dual citizenship because he has relatives from Ireland. And we're looking like his business will allow him to travel to different countries and different places to be able to work, because he works from home now with his company. But I think it's so important that when you do have an Irish business who does have Irish ancestry that fills in those qualifications. I think it's like the latest is like grandmother and mother and parents and yourselves, is able to get that dual. We're seeing more and more Americans doing that. And I know quite a few people who do live somewhat in Ireland and then sometimes here in Jersey. And they are business people. And that's also a great example of, we're talking about small businesses. How do we make those flourish moving forward with those businesses? So it's just a real thought there.
One quick follow-up that I was interested in, Katie, if you don't mind. Obviously, well, first of all, Consul General, you talk about why New Jersey. I think our governor has shown over the last week or so, she takes deep pride and appreciation in her Irish heritage. St. Patrick's Day, she was drinking Jameson, so I think she's full-fledged. So we've got that going for us. But the other thing I think is interesting perspective, listening to some of the global political issues. If you followed closely, I think without speaking for our governor, she doesn't always agree with our president and our federal government. How does Ireland currently view the United States? And then is there sort of a separation? Obviously, New York and New Jersey have a lot different politics than our federal government. So how is that viewed right now in Ireland? And is there anything we can do to be helpful?
We have a sort of a strong tradition of taking kind of a bipartisan view on things, and I think the St. Patrick's Day celebrations in Washington, it's kind of a day of a political ceasefire across the aisles, which is probably welcome. And when both houses and the majority and minority groups and the president and so on all gather together under this sort of Irish flag, and that's kind of how we see things. But I suppose we're very clear that we oppose tariffs. We just think they're bad for business, bad for economies, and we're explicit, and we'd say that directly to the administration in Washington. But what it has caused us to do, and Katie kind of alluded to this when talking about our experience with the UK leaving the EU, that was an economic shock. What the tariffs are also an economic shock, clearly. But it's having two effects. One is that we're looking at the states individually in a way we've never done before, which is why I'm kind of, we've already got kind of data, which I used there a little bit, state by state, on what the level of kind of trade and investment and jobs is in each state. But what the next step we probably have to do ourselves, and with your help studying New Jersey, is to understand the offer in each case. Because there's certain sectors which New Jersey would be better than anywhere else on. I already said that it's the sheer geographic position, that brilliant Irish relationship. Two governors in a row with really strong links, and more before, no doubt, and right through the system, that goodwill there. We're looking at things state by state in a way we've never done before, and that's a very healthy thing, and we'll keep it that way, even if politics changes in Washington.
And I think just to add as well, is businesses tend to be quite pragmatic. So I think business is, well, at least in Ireland, I think by its nature is kind of non-partisan, and the main things that businesses look for when they are seeking out opportunity is certainty and that opportunity to grow. I think that's kind of the main thing. Businesses tend to be pragmatic. So and once again, drawing on the UK, I think a lot of businesses developed the ability to kind of drown out the noise and see the facts for what they are, the opportunities for what they are. And if there's certainty there and there's opportunity to grow, then I think a lot of businesses will then follow. But to Gerald's point, I suppose it's our job within the consulate is to understand better where those opportunities are to provide those pathways and those linkages, which we will hopefully get by working more closely with yourselves and with the Trade Commission.
And business growth is increasing tremendously. Belfast is becoming more of a metropolis compared to Dublin. With Dublin, you consider quaint, even though there's some mom and pop shops there and some bigger stores. But when I visited Belfast a couple of years ago, and then they were there last year, we saw the growth that Belfast was doing, in not only in education but also the businesses and the big businesses as well. While Dublin has, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Dublin has what you call Silicon Docks, which is great because that has all of our Googles and our Amazons and Facebook and all of that stationed there. So it's great to go visit there as well. So we have Dublin, who's very, very quaint place to be. But when we see Belfast, we're talking about the bigger businesses that are going, like the Titanic Museum and a lot of Coca-Cola, and a lot of those businesses as well. That seems to be heading towards Belfast to be able to economically do their job.
Yeah, we welcome and support. It's part of the Good Friday Agreement, which was built with so much support from the US, that to build the economy across the island. So that development in Belfast, film and TV, they're incredible in that space. The tourism offering, and then winning kind of financial services back offices and other research bodies they're a little bit harder. But I mean, that brings to the point, it's all of Ireland that is there as an opportunity. There are flights from New York to Shannon. You can get anywhere pretty quickly by car or by train. So it's, if anybody is thinking of having a little foothold in Ireland, trying to build a European business from there, it can be anywhere on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll say one last. Shannon Airport is also the military's refueling station for U.S. And New Jersey, coming out of our National Guard as well as the Joint Base. So once again, even we have a tie in that area with Ireland, being able to be part of that military service.
Assemblywoman, we never want you to be quiet.
Oh, okay.
Second of all, but this is a good follow-up question, and please, anybody jump in, but the Consul General, Deputy Consul General, you guys talk about trying to sort of explain why, whether it be New York, New Jersey, the U.S. is a great place for Irish companies looking to come. I think, again, without disparaging our neighbors to the north, New Jersey, I think we do share a lot of values and commonality in terms of just, the way we view the world. I think New Jersey's always sort of had that in common. I think you made the point, so I'll second that. Our last two governors, I think, clearly share those same values and principles. And as you have conversations with companies looking to come here, with businesses potentially looking to plant a flag in the U.S., how can New Jersey kind of position itself to be helpful? How can, you have certainly two leaders to the left of me who can help make that happen. How can New Jersey, position ourselves to, when you guys identify somebody that, hey, we think it's important to be in the U.S., how do we stand out?
So I'll pubs, okay? I go to owners and I'm like, do you guys want to open a pub in Ireland? And they're like, let's get started here first. But it's going back to that, and then I'll turn it over. It's meeting where you are, meeting those folks who work where you are, right? And gaining the interest. And maybe I overdo it every so often. I mean, I've approached Dooney's a couple times about going to Ireland, as well as Tommy's Grill up near my house, which is Irish as well, and Dunleavy's. We almost had them there, but they sold it. And it's about, when I find these businesses, the first thing I'm do is on the phone with my friend Mark, who is in Ireland, and say, hey, I might have a great idea for you. It's about how do we have a lot to offer here in Jersey. We really do. In South Jersey particularly, because we have a lot of places to build and a lot of redevelopment in Brownsfields that we could use for redevelopment. But it's about, and I'm going to go back with what Executive Director Weiss said, it's about our communities. People want communities. People want to stay in their communities. They want to play in their communities. They want to eat and drink in their communities, and they want to work in their communities. But most part, they want to be able to have access to the businesses in their communities. And I think that's one of the things, Sean, that we should be also focusing on, is how do we bring that, and I'm going to plug in for Ireland, they have that very quaint pub community business when you walk through the streets of Dublin, and you could hit every corner, and there's not a Wawa or Starbucks. There is actually a pub or a family business there that is taking a stronghold on what they have to offer, and I think that's what the attraction is making it more of a community feel for folks.
that people to people thing, bringing people together is, and we can work with you on that one. I mean, those, you know, the groups going to Ireland makes a huge amount of sense. You have, of course, a New Jersey ambassador in Dublin, in Ed Walsh. You know, who is really keen. I think he's as much the ambassador for New Jersey, or his parts of it anyway, as he's ambassador to the whole of the US. So that's a really sweet spot I would take advantage of, and I know the politics are different there, but I think he's genuine in his wish, and he was very attentive to our Minister for Trade's participation in the Morristown Parade, and a very good meeting, you know, that was set up there. Just a very informal meeting, but a very good meeting with the Lieutenant Governor and other local leaders. So yeah, bringing people together is part of it. But I think, I mean, there's a kind of a head start there. You know, being on the East Coast, having an airport with a direct route. I've no doubt you can produce evidence that it costs less to be here than to be on Manhattan Island, for example. That's always a factor in things, and that sort of Irish goodwill, and the you know, the fact that, you know, I think 11% is the figure across the board, but you'll go into various towns where the figure is more like 15 or 20, and that connection. And we've good Irish communities groups as well, you know, here, don't we? I mean, we've a few organised groups of people, and who can, you know, be part of this.
Yeah, I mean, the community here is strong. There's a lot of kind of various Irish cultural organisations, and that kind of can really expand on the people-to-people piece. There's also an awareness piece as well, I think. You know, if ever you're looking to, I suppose, promote New Jersey, it's making people, you know, in the same way that we try and promote Ireland, it's kind of making people in Ireland be aware of New Jersey, because people don't know what they don't know. So if, you know, for the companies that are already here, they know what the benefits are, and that's already a strong selling point, that there are, you know, 7,000 people already employed here by, I think it's 28 Irish companies, so they've already made that journey and have found success.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I suppose, selling that story, kind of identifying the areas, the sectors where you think New Jersey has that competitive advantage. And Consul General there mentioned about, you know, the direct flight is a huge thing. So the lower cost of operations, anything like that, you know, I think they're the bits that really need to be highlighted and sold. And also looking at kind of, I suppose, groups in Ireland, and the Trade Commission is possibly a good way of doing this, is to identify, so bringing together the trade bodies and representative groups from both as well, because they're the ones who'll have the deeper links into the business communities on both sides. So trying to build those partnerships and relationships as well. I think it, you know, to both the Assemblywoman and the Consul General's point, it starts with people to people, but it's kind of identifying those key people to meet and to build those relationships with, and the rest then should hopefully follow. But it's kind of that awareness piece, I think, is always big and important.
So our old for many years, the pitch Foreign Direct Investment Agency for Ireland was 3 T's. It was talent, track record, and taxation. The taxation bit was the most famous, and it's evolved over time. And you know, there's huge offerings in the research space, and yet we've kind of aligned with the global corporation tax kind of regime otherwise. But actually, over time, talent, track record proved to be the more important of the 3. And the talent piece, you know, you'll know what you've got there. And I mean, it's a very heavily educated state, as far as I understand, one of the most in the US. That's very strongly appealing. And then the track record piece links to Katie's point about work with what's already there, so that the stories of what's already happening here, the stories of Applegreen, stories of CIE, and I see, you know, I've data here on 43 research engagements, you know, with Rutger, Princeton, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Stevens Institute of Technology. There's research partnerships there. So if they tell their stories, you know, this from you know, that helps in both directions. Yeah.
And on the plus side, Ireland's actually, I mean, it's what, half the population probably of New Jersey, so you're already on an advantage at starting off.
Real quick, we started with Kevin, and you guys just talked about the academic. I think New Jersey stands alone in terms of the way that we prepare, our students for the future. But you have a guy sitting on my right who went to literally one of the best schools in the country in New Jersey, computer science, and then said, you know what, I'm going to do what you guys are suggesting. I'm going to start my own business. I want the community to be involved. I just bring it back to Kevin, like how you've heard from a lot of people that have a lot of influence in the state and across the globe. How can we help you?
There needs to be margins. I have to be able to make money. It's that simple. I go back to what I said before. There was just a new round of hemp regulations that were put in place, and they're taking $8.33 in tax from me. So that removed every amount of profit that I was going to be able to make on that product in taxes. But not so much myself. I think really, you're here to try to start businesses. And I don't think that's really very difficult. If you take money and you throw it on the floor, there's going to be a crowd of people running after it. It's that simple. So you have to just simply be able to show people how they go from having an idea to then starting that business. And it's about transparency. When you get into it, you don't know what rent looks like. You don't know what, your customer traffic is going to be. You don't know what your employee expenses are. If that was modeled out, it would have took a lot of the, guesswork out of the situation that says, okay, I can make money on this. And then if one person makes money on it, they're going to tell other people that they're making money on it. And those people will get involved. It's that simple. There has to be money. And right now, there's no money.
Appreciate that. We have about 10 to 15 minutes. So we want to open it up to folks in the audience. Any questions you guys have for anyone on this panel? I know this guy in the front row is never shy, but any thoughts from the group? Appreciate everybody being here today. Any questions for anyone on the panel?
Just want to make a comment.
Please.
Since you pointed at me. Welcome. Mike Eggington, I'm the Executive Vice President of the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce, we're in Trenton. Actually, we had the Court Chamber visit us last year, and I think that's the common linkage with a lot of the countries. They know their chambers of commerce, and a lot of times we've hosted various, delegations over the years. Just a couple personal reflections. The Assemblywoman knows this. I'm very proud of my Irish heritage. My father was from County Meath. My wife, both her parents were County Cavan. And we just got our Irish passports 3 weeks ago, so I'm very proud of that. Keeping that line going so that my daughter Tara and my son Liam can, makes it easier for them. My family, interesting story, a couple of cousins. I had a cousin, she lived in Fanwood, New Jersey. She ended up going back to Ireland. She lived in the Tipperary, Kilkenny area. She's now down in Galway. She was also the Rose of Tralee in 2000 and competed here in the New York, New Jersey area. And I remember Speaker Jack Collins was trying to get my cousin Roisin to come to the State House, but she was, I guess when you're the Rose, you're on this big tour. She was in Australia, all over the world and everything. I have another cousin, William Eggington, who owns Ramon Engineering.
That's a great business.
And
Fabulous
he,
business.
yeah, so he's all international. My dad lives down in Florida.
Yeah.
He stops in to see him, so it's really great. And then try to, not leave any of the other family members. Oh, most importantly, my aunt, when I was a kid, I used to fly to Ireland in the 70s. So one of the frustrating things, was you'd have to go into Kennedy Airport, and that was a whole different experience coming from New Jersey. TWA and Pan Am no longer around anymore. Used to, fly as well as Airlines. Very happy that United Airlines, decided to, have a hub and, go to Shannon and Dublin. And actually, Evan will be on a panel next week with a big business summit in Atlantic City. Various different panel discussions. Sean will be there. And we actually had the CEO from United Airlines, Mr. Kirby, as one of our keynote speakers, along with Governor Sherrill. And just, really keeping that, relationship and everything open. My aunt, who lives in Galway, when I was a kid, met my now uncle, who drove the boat out to the Aran Islands. She has a shop out at the, when you pull her site about the Aaron knit sweaters and the history of it, and then marketing and everything. So in any event, the reason I'm sharing all of this is because of the personal relationship with the building of, you know, and I would be on the trade
I know you
mission,
would.
but my daughters do. I'm gonna be first-time grandpa, so I can't go anywhere. So, but anyway, I love this. I think they all know my passion for it. Always, you know, looking to, you know, keep that strength going, just both on a personal and professional level, and anything that we can do to help foster that. And certainly we know, Kevin, the trials and tribulations of small business. My bigger company members, these some of them were mentioned, you know, they do well, and they, you know, they're international and have headquarters here and as well as overseas. But usually the middle market small business person is the one that usually needs the extra help. But we got the right team in place. I know both of these gentlemen personally, and if anybody can make it happen and make sure that they're the voice for small business working with the legislature, I know that will happen. And, you know, it's been another passion of mine as well to make sure small business gets to thrive, because a lot of our home-based businesses became the big Fortune 500 companies. So, you know, whatever we can do to help, whether it's on the regulatory side, legislatively, you know, we want to be that helpful voice. Thanks, Sean.
No, Mike, thank you. And I was going to say to Kevin, aside from all of the great Irish attributes, as he was obviously trying to impress our friends here, I will return the favor and say that there is probably no more well-respected advocate in the state for small business than Mike. So you guys should definitely connect before we leave here. So I appreciate those comments. Any other questions or comments from anyone here? Please.
I'd like to add something. Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Aspen, I'm with the Small Business Administration. So I just wanted to say that I am here, and I would love to be able to talk to you separately and see if there's some opportunities, information that may be able to help you in this situation. You know, even if it's not from the SBA, maybe there's just some other touch points within the state or around. And we routinely work with the EDA. Like, we're very much of a strong partner. I'm very happy to be here and say that he has introduced myself.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one more.
Please.
thing. Sorry. I'm sorry. Your comments are echoed from another small business owner from, I want to say Cumberland County Independent Spirit Association. I would love to definitely talk to you, and maybe there's an opportunity for a separate conversation about the industry.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Please.
Hi, my name's Tim Bowersax, and I just wanted to introduce myself and thank everybody for inviting me to this event. I have a small family business in Hamilton, New Jersey called the Cross and Shamrock. For 41 years, we sell Irish gifts and Irish imports, and it's great to be here today. Thank you for having us. Just proud. My ancestries are from County Meath and County Cavan, my grandparents, and spent 41 years.
Yes.
Uh-oh, you're gonna be over in the store,
You know, the small business guy, it's great to be here, and tariffs are very hurting us. I'm on the executive board of the North American Delta Trade Association. I work with CIE Tours, Enterprise Ireland, promoting tours, and we do a lot of things with some Irish food, gifts, jewelry. So it's just great to be here, and appreciate this administration and this economic development authority supporting small businesses. I know I spoke on the panel last year. Our small business got a grant for a new website several years ago, and it really made a dramatic difference in our business, helping our business qualify hires. So just want to say hello and thank you.
Thank you.
And you know what, just to comment on that.
Yeah.
That one of the things that I really try to focus on when we talk about businesses, because we are part of a tri-state, whether it's Connecticut, New York, and Jersey, or Philadelphia, Delaware, and Jersey. Jersey's always right there in the middle, right? Or it's Philadelphia, Jersey, and New York. how do we, and this is why I'm always keen on having roundtables with businesses to understand more of what they need, but how do we assure that somebody who does business in Jersey can also do business in Delaware or Philadelphia or New York, right? Because we are right across, there's so much of that transit that goes across the bridges. People may live in Philadelphia, come to New Jersey, have a business here, or they may want to be opening, or they might have a business in Philadelphia but don't want to come to Jersey because the rules and regulations are different or the processes are different. I think there's an ability for all of us on the business side to be able to start working more in sync with a lot of the business legislation, a lot of rules and regulations, and streamlining those businesses. I think that is so very important, especially for our small business owners who want to expand, who want to look for places maybe in another state that is in the tri-state where they can continue, because transit's very easy to get from by train, Jersey bus, but I mean, South Jersey, but I think it's so very important. We work with our chambers, we work with the EDA, and we work with those business, and it goes back to all, like we were saying, talking to people. And it could be the most unassuming person has a business, and you never know who they are until you have those conversations.
Kara, can I add
Yeah.
one thing, just because Kevin would be interested in this? So a couple of years ago, a mutual friend of ours said, hey, do you want a tour of Yarns Brewery? The answer you want to hear. We won't delay them and at least get them an answer quick enough. So I think that's something the new administration is top of the ticket addressing, and
Right.
we're looking forward to helping in that space.
Right, addressing those barriers that
Yeah,
are needed
right.
to lessen the barriers, I think, is so very important, without looking like taxing.
Right.
To be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the taxing my businesses to death, but,
It was interesting to hear hearing stories of. Immediately, that was going to be my question to you. How the tariffs working out? It's hurting everybody. It's hurting the people you're buying from back home, and hurting your business as well. And I think of Dramone Engineering. I met William when I was posted in France, and he was building his business. It's so impressive. They won an award at the time. This is about 15 years ago, and they make agricultural machinery, incredibly clever kind of attachments for tractors, and I'm sure it's grown since then.
We lived in
Leitrim or something?
outside the old
Yeah,
castle
yeah.
area, and that's where my grandmother and
Yeah,
Stanley was from.
yeah.
He just took off from it, from being a small business to
Yeah.
enterprise. Have you ever talked to William again and say,
Oh yeah, I must look. We're connected on LinkedIn. I'll drop him a line. Great guy, but that's another business that would be affected by tariffs. It's hard machinery. It's goods. Yeah, it's interesting to learn this.
At the state chamber, again, they all know we have to kind of walk the line between, what goes on in the federal government, and so on and so forth. But we've been pretty vocal and adamant about opposing the tariffs. And as you said, Katie, you said the buzzword that I've always said before the chairwoman many times. What do businesses want? Certainty and predictability. They do long-term planning. They want to be able to navigate that, not who's in, who's out, and such. And with the tariffs, as you all know, they're up, they're down, they're this way, that way. It's when businesses don't have that certainty and predictability, it's incredibly frustrating, then they give up on it, you know?
Agree with that.
We've got a couple minutes. Let me just kind of try to wrap up. First of all, again, just deep appreciation to the Consul General and Deputy Consul General for being here. The rest of the people that you see here are pretty accessible, so you can always get us. But you guys being here, I really appreciate it, and thank you again. Deputy Speaker, thank you for hosting us. Appreciate you again, you hosting this event and your leadership. Deep appreciation, and the guy to your right and I stand ready to work with you and do whatever we can to help guys like Kevin. So that's why we're here. We appreciate it and appreciate everyone being here. Any final thoughts from anybody in the panel?
No, I think this is just great. Please frequent duties periodically. Go to Talmadge, go Dudley. All the places in Burlington County are great to go to. But just remember, you do have people here who want to work with you. And teaming up and partnering and using us as a resource is tremendous. And I feel very honored when you call me up, because if you don't, I feel like I'm not needed. So if you call me up and said, I need your help with stuff, I'm right there. And my Chief of Staff, Connor, who's Irish as well, we're here to help you. And I think working with EDA and the Trade Commission, along with the caucuses, many trade commissions, and we'll work on something to get more business out there, especially in August when we do the big trade, the caucuses that the trade commissions go out to Ireland. And we're going to get, I'm telling you, we're going to get Rutgers play football in Ireland one day. We're trying really hard. Yeah, we're trying.
And now you have Brian Quigley over there.
Yes, exactly. And that's right. Yes, so again, thank you all for coming. New Jersey has so much to offer, any state, let alone any country, but Ireland and us, we are simpatico. And I think, and I'll just say that because of the involvement I have with Ireland, but because the heritage is so strong here in New Jersey. So thank you for inviting me, Sean.
Thank you.
It's great.